Hello, Monsters About here, and welcome to the battle preview for Total War Pharaoh. You probably know about Total War Pharaoh already because Creative Assembly managed to leak the release thanks to their website, and then someone else leaked a bunch of stuff, and then Creative Assembly leaked stuff again because I guess they didn't want to be outdone. And by now you've probably seen the trailer anyway. However, if this is news to you, then welcome to the internet, and I hope you enjoy your stay. Total War Pharaoh is going to be the next title in the Total War franchise, and it is a historical title, not a saga title, because apparently saga titles are now dead, or something. But if you're hoping this tries to straddle the divide between historical and fantasy, it doesn't. There's no mythological part of this game, it is pure historical, which is a bit of a shame, because I did like what Troy tried to do, although I feel like they probably should have just plumbed for the mythological part. I would love a Total War sort of mythology or something. You know, like Age of Empires did. That was great. Let's have some of that in Total War. I would fucking love that. But that is not Total War Pharaoh. This is very trying to play it straight. Which, okay, fair enough. There will be similarities with Total War Troy because it is done by the same studio, CA Sophia. And obviously being set in the Bronze Age, same sort of rough era. Fairly sure that's the kind of thing that gets you stabbed by historians, but never mind. So as the battle preview, we got to play 3 different battles: easy, medium, and hard. Easy and medium were land battles, and the hard battle was a defensive siege battle. Each of the 3 battles we got to play as Ramesses, one of the 4 Egyptian legendary lords available at release. There are also 2 Canaanite and 2 Hittite, but no Mycenaean lords, which makes me suspect that we're going to have some pre-order DLC. Now, I do know there's going to be cosmetic DLC for pre-order, I think. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, because ultimately it's just not something that would particularly interest me. My guess is this is probably a diktat from Daddy Sega, because I think their profits were down last year, so they probably want to push it a little bit harder. Gotta milk that money cow. But whatever. If you're not interested with the cosmetic DLC, then just don't buy it. And frankly, I'm going to struggle to care. So the TLDR of the battle preview, I guess, would be, seems fine. I know you're probably hoping for more than that, but it just seems fine. I mean, the battles were slower than Total War Warhammer, but then that's not hard, because Total War Warhammer battles do hit with the energy of a 4-year-old birthday party with an open sherbet bar. This, on the other hand, was a little bit more of a sedate affair, which allowed you to get a little bit more strategy in there. Units were a little bit more sticky, they weren't going to run away, they weren't going to die immediately. Charges weren't necessarily as super effective, even chariot charges, which were pretty effective. So a little bit more sedate, but ultimately fairly similar to what we had in Total War Troy, which, again, I think was fine. There were a few bugs in the preview that we had, so there are a few additional bells and whistles on top of the battles that we had, and one of those was formations. So we now have slightly different formations. Each unit may not have all of them, but there were things like advance, fall back, and hold. So advance, units engaged in combat will try and push the enemy back. Fall back, they will try and, as the name suggests, fall back while fighting, so they will move backwards but still facing the enemy. Hold means they will try and hold their position. There are also advanced things like shield wall, spear wall, that gave different effects. But the problem was that the units tended to, if you put them in, say, advance, if they got hit in the flank, they wouldn't actually like pivot to meet the enemy, so only the 3 guys at the end of your formation would be kind of like, oh shit, I better deal with this. Now, I have high hopes that these issues will be fixed, but I've said that about Total Wars in previous previews, and those issues were never fixed, so we'll see. I'm hoping that it's fixed in the early access, because if it's not fixed by the early access, I'm just going to assume it's not going to be fixed. But overall, the battles were fine. They were just like Total War battles we've had previously, because let's face it, Total War hasn't really innovated all that much. And I guess they don't need to, because the battles are fine. Pretty good. So, I mean, better than most other companies that try a similar thing manage to succeed with. With that said, Total War Pharaoh does bring some bells and whistles, and one of those whistles was, of course, the additional unit formations, which is quite nice. We've also got dynamic weather and dynamic terrain. Now, the dynamic, we've had weather before in Total War games, right? Even weather that has an effect on the battle. So, for example, I believe in Total War Medieval 2, rain would mean gunpowder units can't fire. However, now weather has actual modifiers on your units. So for example, maybe units won't move as fast, maybe they won't be able to shoot as far, maybe they won't have as much accuracy, maybe the morale will be lower. In the case of like a sandstorm, maybe you'll take damage over time. And also weather can change during the battle. So if the battle starts in just a normal day, maybe a sandstorm will hit, which is exactly what happens in the first battle we play. And you can see what weather is going to hit, right? It's predicted. So you might have a battle that says it starts on a nice day, but at some point during the battle, a sandstorm will hit. You don't know entirely when that will hit, but you have a general idea that it will hit eventually. So far, we've only seen weather that turns from one thing into another thing. I don't know if it will turn from one thing to another thing to another thing. That might be a little bit extreme, but who knows? And the weather will also have an effect on terrain. Terrain is also something we've seen before in Total War. Total War Troy obviously had mud and grass that your units could hide in, that kind of thing. And it's back in Total War Pharaoh, with the addition that, for example, if it starts raining, maybe some ground will turn into mud. If it gets particularly hot, maybe mud will turn into just normal ground, that kind of thing. So, terrain will change a little. Now, with that said, both these effects. Now, I feel like if a sandstorm hit during a battle, right, that battle would be a clusterfuck from that point on. Right, people wouldn't be able to see each other, orders wouldn't go through, units wouldn't be able to shoot at each other, that kind of thing. But realistically, the sandstorm just kind of makes things a little bit harder. And to be honest, I kind of think I just don't know if the modifier's enough. The sandstorm hits. Do I actually care? Because the answer is, at the moment, no, not really. It's not really going to affect me all that much, to be honest. And I really think it should, but it doesn't. And it's the same with the terrain. Like, mud is a minor inconvenience at most. Is that going to change the way I fight battles? Not really, no. So therefore, you ask the question, well, what's the point? If I'm not going to care, if I don't give a shit about the terrain, then why is it there? And I want there to be a reason for me to worry, right? I want to look at that and go, oh, there's mud there. I will struggle to get my chariots through that. And, there is a modifier that will slow down your chariots in mud, but is it enough to actually care about? Because at the moment, no, it ain't. So that's a bit of a shame. There's also fire. Now, we've had fire before in Total War Three Kingdoms, Attila, that kind of thing. The fire spreads, and we've seen that before, but it now spreads like across the ground, so grass will set on fire and that will spread. Also, the fire effects are much nicer, and trees will turn ashen when they are on fire. So again, that's nice to see. It's something we've kind of seen before, but it's nice. They've improved the technology behind it, which is good. We've also got an armor percentage. Now, we've had armor before, but now we have like a percentage armor, and this sort of dictates what good nick your armor's in, right? If you've taken a battering, your armor won't be very good, and so you have this percentage. As you take damage, as the unit takes damage, their armor percentage reduces, and this actually reduces their armor on the unit. So if you see a particularly heavy unit in combat, you may think, I need to wear them down a little bit before they get, and even if you don't kill any, maybe you'll take their armor down to 50%, and suddenly, this tanky unit, not as tanky as it was. And I guess that also means that lighter units, I mean, they won't have as much armor to start off with, but that means they don't have as much to lose either. So you're less worried about their armor actually degrading. How this will actually work in battle, I don't know. It's not something that I necessarily really tuned into during the battle preview, but maybe later on when you kind of feel like you know your units a little bit better, because that is the problem with a battle preview. You get dumped into these battles with new units, you don't know what they can do, and you kind of just have to sort of muck along with it. So we'll see how that goes. Sieges have changed. There's no more arse ladders. That's right, you're not going to just pull an arrow at your arse and climb up a wall. If you want to actually attack a city, you're going to have to build siege equipment and bring it to the battle, which is a really nice change. I'm glad they brought that. With that said, it's basically fixing something that I think was universally hated about siege combat, was the arse ladders. I didn't mind it so much, but I do think it did have a negative effect on sieges, because you couldn't defend a piece of wall, could you? People would just climb over all over the place. Although we're tired, it never felt like you could really hold the wall very well. I don't know. we'll see how it sort of plays out. There are also capturable objectives in the cities in Total War Pharaoh. These are things like markets, which give the defenders more leadership, palace, which gives more leadership, a temple, which gives healing over time. I believe there's going to be others as well. So there are capturable objectives in the cities. That is a little bit sort of like gamey, but then this is a game. So overall, battles are unchanged, but slower and with some additional effects, which I'm not 100% sure will affect the actual battle all that much, but it's nice they're trying new things. We did learn a little bit about the campaign, not an awful lot, but a little bit. There's going to be 4 Egyptian factions, 2 Canaanite, 2 Hittite. All of the factions seem fairly varied. You've got the shooty Egyptian faction. You've got the Egyptian faction with lots of chariots. We've seen it before, right? We didn't learn anything about the mechanics that these factions actually are going to use in the campaign. I hope they've got some strong mechanics behind them in the campaigns. I think that will really make the game. We did learn that the game is going to use the same resource system as Total War Troy, which I think is a huge plus. I really hope they've also brought some of the stuff that the Chaos Dwarves in, because obviously to make bronze you need copper and tin mostly. And I do hope there's kind of like a thing where you need copper and tin and then a building that then converts that into bronze to kind of have a little bit of a production chain. I think that would be really interesting, because there was a little back and forth between the empires in that region because they did need tin and bronze. And so that was quite, you know, that was the key resource to get their hands on, because obviously it's the Bronze Age. Makes sense. But it would be nice if we saw that sort of actually play out. There will be no naval battles, and I, for one, I'm glad about that, because I do think the naval combat... People seem to think that, oh, like the boarding actions, that sounds fun, but fuck me, we had that in Attila. You know what? It's a pain in the ass, because your naval battle just ends up in a big blob in the middle, and you have no fucking clue what's going on. Basically, naval battles outside of Empire were universally fucking terrible. So it's just on islands, and I'm fine with that. There was also a whole bunch of extra customization you can apparently do in the campaign. So, for example, sea people raiders will turn up. If you don't like that, you can turn that off in the campaign difficulty. Be like, nope, don't want to deal with that. Untick. So more options for how to customize your campaign. That's a nice option. I really like having additional options to make my campaigns, you know, suit my campaigns how I want to play, what I find fun. They also had a mechanic about, I think this is like if there's more wars going on, then basically the color palette gets darker, and I think you get more negative events, whereas if it's peaceful, it's a nicer color palette and you get slightly better events. Something like that seems fine, I guess, but I'll be honest, I was a bit like, why are you telling us this? Like, that seems like such a minor thing. I really hope that's not their main campaign mechanic, because if so... Ugh. So overall, I would say that I'm interested in Total War Pharaoh, but I'm withholding judgment for the moment, because, you know, we only got to see the battles. We didn't get to see the campaign stuff, which I think I'm a little bit more interested in. I like the battle stuff, don't get me wrong, but I prefer it when there's, you know, campaign gameplay joining those battles together and giving them context rather than just lumping me into a battle. With that said, we are now going to have to look at the 3 battles in closer detail to give you, you know, an idea of what you can expect in Total War Pharaoh.
Finally, Ramesses III has cornered another pretender to the crown. You've spent many turns demolishing Seti's cities and pushing him out of your lands, but this will be the final blow to his false claim. Your armies have cut most of his forces down, hunting them across the vast sands of Egypt, and now all that remains are his most devoted followers. You do not have command of the full forces of a pharaoh yet, but your troops are still loyal and determined to fight for your cause. Some have been with you from the start of your journey. These faithful Medjai swordsmen have joined you from your bastion at Nebges. Others have been persuaded of your divinity. These lower Egyptian spear militia were conscripted from freshly conquered Kes, taking up arms in your name and illustrating the region's devotion to you. Regardless, all have been trained in your manner of combat and will follow your orders. Be sure to utilize their stances for maximum effect, giving ground to lure the foe deeper into your forces, holding your position, or pushing the enemy back and pressing your advantage. The sand lies calm for now, but you know this land. Your gut tells you that it is unlikely to stay this way as grainy wind whistles in your ears, an early warning of an incoming sandstorm. Expect lowered visibility, speed, and missile effectiveness, alongside small wounds as the biting sands whips at your troops. Think carefully about if you want to surge forwards and press the attack before the chaos, or use the incoming sands to your advantage. Command your forces, destroy the Pretender, and claim the title of Pharaoh once and for all.
So here we are in the first battle. I'm actually going to play this one so we can look at some of the UI and stuff. So we've got various different units. The tier system goes up to tier 5, I believe. I've only had up to tier 3 before. Now we go up to tier 5. So these guys are tier 1. You can see the stats are... remind me a lot of Troy, to be honest. Health is very high. But most units have a little bit more damage as well, so that kind of balances it out. Ramesses is our general and our faction leader. There he is, and his bodyguard is currently armed just with sword and shield there, so they are fairly tanky. And we do have some abilities. We've got Inspiring Shout, we've got Hold, and we've got Hide in Forest. So we actually have this stance here, which we can use to hold. So we use that. They will try and hold their position. Some of the units have different ones, such as the archers have give ground. So if they're fighting, they can actually try and pull back. Kind of makes sense, seeing as they are archers. And I think one of these guys, yeah, so it's a swordsman, have advanced. So they will try and push the enemy back while they're advancing. With that said, currently the stances are a little bit balked. And if you turn them on, then your units tend to... They just kind of tend to... You know how, like, Cathay in Total Warhammer ends up with your units just not fighting the enemy, just, like, standing at a right angle? It's that kind of thing. It's fine, but obviously you probably don't want your units doing that. Right, we're going to start the battle here, and we can see that it's currently dry, but a sandstorm is predicted. And that's going to give us less range, speed, charge bonus, and reload time. See, the rest of the UI is fairly similar. All the controls basically the same as previous Total War games. If you played another Total War game, you'll be fairly at home with this. To our skirmish mode, we've got fire at will. In later battles, we also get fire arrows, which are slightly more important than in previous games because, of course, you can set fire to things and fire will spread. I would like to see potentially the option to shoot at the ground so that you can, like, set, you know, trees on fire and stuff. In the final battle, we'll see how devastating fire can be. Okay, we're going to push forwards. Let's get our archers to open fire. Sort of want to engage the enemy on the left flank there. We want to be a little bit careful. And as we take damage, you can see that our armor percent there, the green armor, is slowly decreasing as we take damage. So we want to be careful about that. Particularly are whittling down our general unit, so he's down to 61 armor. That's because his armor is decreasing over time. Oh, let's pause that while we sort our units out. They haven't fixed cinematic bloody smoothing, so it's still you turn it down to turn it up. Okay, we'll get the nice surround there. Get their general surrounded. Start chopping him up. Concentrate our missile fire on taking out those slingers.
Fight for Pharaoh. Destined for victory.
There we go, getting stuck right in there. These boys are now in trouble.
Prodigy of war. Swordsman, strike through. I'm getting out of here.
So we have lost, we're down to 22% armor, and as you can see, our armor has decreased. So we have to be careful about that. Let's do some damage here. I feel like the levy, the Med-J fighters. It's not the right tooltip, is it? There you go. The Med-J swordsmen are currently wailing on those levy clubmen. Enemy general's getting his ass kicked, which is good. And we need to bring our lads back. And you can see, I think we're about to see the weather start changing. Okay, that's pretty good. Getting some shots in there. I think let's concentrate. Well, what do I want to do here? Okay, let's go over here and take out this blob. They're currently trying to kill off our spear militia. I think the enemy general should be getting chopped up. Oh. Slingers. More slingers. Don't like that. Never mind. Right, let's chop up these lads. As you can see, the battle is definitely a little bit slower, isn't it? It's taking longer to sort of grind down these units, which I like. Managed to cause a bit of a rout in the centre there, which is good. Let's get our archers to concentrate fire. Oh, are we gonna win before the sandstorm hits? Aced it. Holy shit. There we go, just in time as the sandstorm hits. You can see the lighting changed a bit, and you can see the sandstorm icon slowly eclipsing the current weather. And there comes the sandstorm. There's no current way to tell exactly when it's going to happen. But to be honest, I think a faction that could like tell exactly when weather was going to hit would actually be quite neat. Here we are, the second battle around Little Oasis. It's very nice. We've got rain, and a thunderstorm is predicted, which is going to make matters significantly worse. We're up against that guy. He's currently got a shield and spear bodyguards, which makes him quite tanky. He's got a lot of beefy armor there, very heavily armored. Meanwhile, Ramesses has got some light bow chariots. Now, chariots are one of those units in Total War that are very difficult, seemingly, to balance, because they're just sort of like, they're either absolute murder machines or absolute trash. In this game, I think they're actually not bad. We do have our javelins hiding in the trees there. They actually have an ability, which called Spear in the Spoke, which is an ability you can use on chariots to slow them by about 60%, which obviously would make them fairly easy prey. But as you said, javelins will do lots and lots of damage to them. A couple of volleys there, and they're basically down to half health. They will get the charge into our swordsmen, but it wasn't particularly good, and the javelins can then help to mop them up. Yeah, lots of damage. Lots of damage there. Meanwhile, our chariots are roaming around. We're going to try and knock out the enemy missile units. They do have a lot of heavy armor boys. So 55 armor, 80 armor. These guys, heavily armored. Of course, the weight classes are back as well. Of course, that has an effect on different types of terrain. So heavy units will get bogged down in mud, whereas light units won't have such a bad time. Which is an interesting idea, but never really came into play in Total War Troy that much, to be honest, because the terrain seemed to be few and far between, easy to ignore, and the penalties weren't really enough to worry about. If anything, I think they've made it less effective on chariots, because even chariots in mud can move fairly quickly at the moment, and I feel like, you know, if you're driving a chariot through mud, your chariot should just be fucking awful. I think in general, the negatives for weather and stuff, I think there need to be more of them. Like, fighting in a sandstorm should be an absolute fucking nightmare. Like, logistically, it would just be awful. You'd be able to see where you're going. Units would be getting lost. People would be panicking. So we do get a rear charge on the spearmen here. These guys are heavy spearmen. They're strong against chariots, and indeed, although the charge goes quite well, once the charge has worn off, our chariots start taking a lot of damage there, so we need to get them out of combat. So chariots, good, but you don't want them to be sort of left fighting spears, because that's going to go badly. Meanwhile, our javelins are moving around to the flank. We've got these spearmen, which definitely want a couple of javelins in the spine. Obviously, generally, the amount of javelins you want lodged in your spine, around 0. Any more than 0, that's probably bad. The enemy general got mixed in with some of our Egyptian mace warriors. These guys have the spear brace formation, which reduces their speed but does give them charge reflect. There's also units which have the swap weapon. So I think it was... God, who was it? Is it these guys? Yes, these guys. So it was these axe bodyguards. These axe bodyguards have... Oh, there we go. Two-hand melee. So they can switch to a double-handed axe. And what they do is they actually swap the shields out onto their back. And that gives them missile defense from the rear as well, which is quite interesting.
Spill blood! Destroy them!
However, there we go. We have managed to defeat the enemy army quite successfully. I'll say Ramesses did very well in his chariots. They got, what was it, 258 kills? It's alright, isn't it? For light bow chariots, I'll take it. And of course, the thunderstorm has hit. And it's very rainy. I hadn't really noticed, because obviously I'm British, so this is normal for me. So here we are, the third and final battle. The toughest battle, apparently. I will say that obviously they try and aim these battles so that press who may have never played Total War games before can play them. So they're not really, difficulty-wise, they're probably not aimed at Total War content partners who play Total War quite a lot. What I love to see is that the trampling grass thing is back for the chariots, because I really like that. So we've got some light chariots. They are doing some hit and run attacks. Meanwhile, we are defending the walls. The city does look gorgeous. It is quite big. My concern with these big cities is that you barely actually use most of it. And then if the AI runs away inside the city and then it decides to go and grab, the palace or something, because there's different victory points in the city. We've got the marketplace, and these will change as well. So we've got the marketplace, that's going to give us a little bit more morale. We've got the palace, that's going to give us a little bit more morale. And then finally we've got the temple, which gives us 10 hit points healed per second. So a bit of a heal there as well. It's quite nice. Ramesses in this battle is a bow boy. His bodyguard is armed with bows. Gonna be honest, they are not very effective. They don't have much ammunition. They're already down to about 2/3 of their ammunition, and dropping all the time. We are trying to take out the siege towers as they advance. However, you'll notice that there's a bunch of fire arrows falling off the wall here, and how the grass is now on fire. So, the problem with this, for the enemy at least, is the fact that they are going to take their siege towers and park them on the burning grass. This will set the siege towers on fire. So, I mean, it's interesting. You can see that it is spreading, which is fun. And you can see that the ground darkening as well, which is a nice effect. It's quite nice. I will say this battle does get a little bit laggy, and it was only the replay. The actual battle itself was absolutely fine. And I do like how you can actually see like the tracks in the ground. It's a little thing, but it's really satisfying. I did ask about the Blood DLC. Of course, there will be a Blood DLC. You know it. You know there will be a Blood DLC. But we managed to take down one of the towers. But you know, whatever you feel about the Blood DLC, and I wish it was in the base game. I'm totally behind that. But they did say they wanted to have the blood tracks from the chariots and the blood in the water like drifting downstream, which was always fun. So you can see this. They've parked their siege towers on the burning grass there, and these siege towers are now just like lighting up. They are on fire. Yeah, there we go. They're collapsing. On fire. So basically all of these siege towers will collapse due to the fact they set the grass underneath on fire because they were shooting at me with fire arrows. I mean, it's fine. You know, these things happen. So getting a little bit of lag here. Again, this was fine in the actual battle. I didn't experience any lag. For some reason, it's just the replay. It's not the end of the world. So they can't use their arse ladders. They have to bring actual siege ladders to the fights to get up onto the wall, which is really nice. Or they have to use rams to batter down the gate, of course. This does make sense, because there's no reason to bring the rams in Total War, considering that you can smash the gate down faster with your infantry, to be honest. So I really like this change. It's really nice. You can see the fire spreading in the trees over here, and they become kind of like ashen and grey, and I really like that. That's a really nice effect. You can see the ground is blackened over time, which is really, really nice. And our chariot's continuing to do Ra's work. There we go. Got that. Trying to remember an Egyptian god. As you can see, all of the siege towers have collapsed. The blackened grass is a little bit blocky there. Again, this is of course an alpha build, so
Destroy them!
have to be a little bit accepting of that. If that's still in the game come the actual release, obviously that'll be rough, but hopefully they'll fix that. So you can see Ramesses is already out of ammunition, and because he's out of ammunition, his melee attack and defense is actually not great. So all I can do with him is just bring him down and maybe use him as a buff boy, because he does have some more buffs. He's got Inspiring Shout, we had that in the first battle. He's got Hit Them Hard, which is like an AoE buff, and he's also got Take Aim, so we can use that as well. These are both AoE buffs. They can be used like in a little circle anywhere around him, so you can drop that on these lads over here, for example, and they would all get extra attack and stuff like that, which is quite nice. So this battle wasn't particularly difficult, but it was quite fun because there was lots of fights going on all over the place. Quite like that. The fights were, you know, fairly slow, methodical. You could enjoy them, which was the main thing, I think. I think some recent Total Wars, the battles have been so fast that you can't really enjoy it. Oh, Seafaring Slings and Islanders Heavy Axemen. Now, I think we've seen these guys in Total War Troy. I could be wrong. These are basically the sea people we're fighting here, so which is why they're called like Seafaring Slings and stuff like that. We definitely saw like island lads, didn't we? Islander Axemen or something like that. I don't know, they were heavy though. I mean, they look nice. They've got a nice look to them. Like the units look pretty. They're nice. There's a good variety. Different units. There might be upgrades and stuff. So we've got the elite Med-J Axemen. Are there Med-J Axemen? Quite possibly. What units do we have here? Renowned Seafaring Raiders. So of course the sea people will turn up. There's also quite a lot of options in the game, in the campaign gameplay, about what you can turn. So you could, for example, turn off the sea people. So sea people might turn up, but you can turn that off in the options. You can say, I don't want that. So there seems to be a lot more campaign options, which is really, really nice. I like that a lot. Giving more options to people is great. And yeah, as we can see, the yeah, a little unit snuck in, and they're grabbing the objective there. It's just kind of annoying because that's not going to win them the battle, but it will just kind of piss me off. Hero chariots, though, they are medium bow chariots, but they've been doing amazing work. They've got 250 kills, almost 4,000 damage dealt as gold. They have been rolling around. They've taken quite a lot of damage in the meantime. But to be honest, the only reason we've been able to do this is because that most of the units went over the wall, and we could just roll over their archers and slingers and stuff. The amount of devastation we've got here does look great. I like that. I like the fact that the fire can spread across the grass. That's a really nice effect. Really, really good. Like that a lot. There's definitely a lot to like in Total War Pharaoh, but as I said, we've yet to see any of the campaign gameplay really, and I think that is going to be... I think that's going to be the main thing. I think that's what I am mostly looking out for. I'm you know, they have my interests. Will they be able to get my attention? Anyway, that was a look at Total War Pharaoh. Obviously, look out for more information coming soon, no doubt.